The conference room fell silent as the holographic message played for the third time. Counselor Velmara's reptilian face filled the projection, her forked tongue flickering between words. Her message was clear and cold. Humanity had 7 days to surrender their outer colonies, 7 days to accept what she called protective governance. 7 days, or face the largest military fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Captain Day One stood near the back of the room, his arms crossed as he watched Earth's military leaders argue. Some wanted to negotiate. A few called for a fight they all knew humanity could not win. He remained quiet, observing, calculating. That was his way. Always thinking 3 moves ahead. 18. Admiral Taeyang sat at the head of the massive table, his weathered hands folded before him. The old man had fought in the first contact skirmishes 50 years ago. He had seen humanity step into a galaxy that viewed them as primitives. Now, that same galaxy wanted to put them in chains. The Admiral's eyes met Day One's across the room. A silent understanding passed between them. Enough, Taeyang said, his voice cutting through the chaos. The room fell silent. They send 10,000 warships against our 200. They think we will roll over like animals. They think we have no teeth. He stood slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. They are wrong. Day One felt something stir in his chest. Hope, perhaps. Or maybe just the stubborn human refusal to kneel. The Admiral continued. Captain Day One will take the Eternal Dawn to the neutral zone. He will buy us time to evacuate civilians from the outer colonies. The rest of our fleet will prepare defensive positions around Earth and Mars. Murmurs rippled through the room. The Eternal Dawn was supposed to be humanity's secret, their ace in the hole. A ship built in the shadows of Jupiter's moons, using technology that pushed every boundary the Council said could not be crossed. After the meeting ended, Day One found himself walking beside the Admiral through the quiet corridors of Lunar Command. Outside the thick windows, Earth hung in the darkness, like a blue jewel. You know what they will think when they see one ship, Day One said quietly. Let them think it, Taeyang replied. Let them think we are fools. Let them think we are desperate. He stopped and turned to face the captain. Heejin tells me the Eternal Dawn is ready. More than ready. She says the ship will do things they cannot imagine. Day One nodded. Chief Engineer Heijin had spent 5 years building systems that should not work. She took alien technology and asked simple questions. Why does it have to work this way? What if we tried something different? The answers she found changed everything. Show them who we are, Taeyang said, gripping Day One's shoulder. Show them that humanity does not break. 2 days later, Day One stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn. The ship hung in space like a predator waiting to strike. It did not look like the elegant vessels the Council built. No graceful curves or decorative hull plating. The Eternal Dawn was all angles and armor, built for one purpose: to fight, to win. Heijin appeared beside him, her datapad glowing with system readouts. All systems are green, Captain. The jump drive is operating at 112% efficiency. The weapons grid is online. Shields are holding steady. 112%. Day One raised an eyebrow. She smiled slightly. I made improvements during the final tests. The alien designs are good, but they think too rigidly. They never push the boundaries. We do. Lieutenant Sung Ho approached from the weapons station. The young officer's excitement was barely contained. Captain? Enemy fleet detected. They are gathering at the Council staging area. Initial count shows 9,800 vessels. Nearly 10,000 ships. Day One had seen the projections, but hearing the actual number made it real. Any sane commander would call this suicide. But Day One had never claimed to be sane, just stubborn. Dr. Bo-Ra, he called to the science station. Is the FTL system ready for the jump? The scientist looked up, pushing her glasses higher on her nose. Ready, Captain. The calculations are perfect. We can drop out of faster-than-light travel exactly where you want us, right in the middle of their formation. Sensor Chief Jinwoo whistled softly from his console. That is insane, Captain. Dropping out of FTL that close to other ships should tear us apart. Should, He-Jin said, joining the conversation. But it will not. I have removed the safety limiters. The Eternal Dawn is not bound by their rules. Day One moved to the captain's chair and sat down. The ship hummed around him, alive with power. He could feel it. This vessel was different, special, built by humans who refused to accept limitations. All crew to battle stations, he ordered calmly. Engineering, prepare the jump drive. Weapons, load all rails, and prime the main cannon. Shields, to maximum. The bridge erupted in controlled chaos as everyone moved to execute his commands. Day One watched the main screen, seeing the distant stars. Somewhere out there, the Council Armada waited. They expected humanity to beg, to surrender, to accept their place as a lesser species. Captain, Taeyang's voice crackled over the communication channel from Earth. Godspeed. Show them what happens when they corner a human. Yes, sir, Day One replied. He closed the channel and looked at his crew. Young and old. Experienced and fresh. All of them ready. All of them refusing to give up. Take us out, he ordered. Maximum speed to the neutral zone. The Eternal Dawn turned and accelerated, its engines blazing bright against the darkness. Behind them, Earth grew smaller. Ahead, an impossible battle waited. Day One felt no fear, only determination. The Council wanted war. Humanity would give them something far worse. They would give them a lesson in what happens when you underestimate the human spirit. Commander Krios stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominant Will, and watched the holographic display with satisfaction. Nearly 10,000 ships formed a wall of metal and weapons that stretched across space, the largest armada ever assembled. The humans would see this and understand their mistake. They would see and surrender. Commander, his tactical officer called out. We are detecting a single vessel approaching from human space. Krios moved closer to the display. One ship, one tiny vessel against 10,000. He began to laugh. The sound echoed across his bridge, and his crew joined in. The humans were even more foolish than he thought. What type of vessel? Unknown, sir. It does not match any human ship in our database. Size suggests a capital ship, but the energy readings are unusual. They send one ship. Krios shook his head. Let the humans watch as I vaporize their pathetic attempt at resistance. On board the Eternal Dawn, Captain Day One watched the Council fleet spread across his view screen. It looked like a metal ocean. Endless rows of warships, all perfectly positioned, all waiting. He felt his heart beat faster, but his hands remained steady on the armrests. Distance to the fleet, he asked calmly. 2 million kilometers and closing. Jinwoo reported from sensors. They are holding position. No hostile actions yet. Heijin stood beside the captain's chair, her eyes on the engineering readouts. Jump drive is ready. I can put us exactly where you want, Captain. Day One studied the formation. The Council ships arranged themselves in a standard defensive pattern. Carriers in the center. Battleships forming a protective ring. Smaller vessels scattered throughout. Predictable. Rehid. Perfect. Prepare for jump, he ordered. Drop us right in the middle of their formation. Between the carriers and the flagship. The bridge went quiet. Even Sung-Ho at the weapons station looked back with wide eyes. Dropping out of faster-than-light travel that close to other ships violated every safety protocol. The gravitational forces alone could crush them. Captain, Sung-Ho asked carefully. You heard the order, Lieutenant, Day One said. Trust the ship. Trust Engineer Heijin. Heijin smiled. Initiating jump. In 10 seconds. The Eternal Dawn vanished from normal space, leaving only a ripple of energy behind. For 3 heartbeats, The ship existed between dimensions. Then, reality snapped back. The human battleship appeared directly in the center of the Council formation, less than 500 kilometers from the flagship. Alarms screamed across every Council vessel. Sensors went wild. Tactical officers shouted in confusion. It was impossible. Ships could not jump that close. The mathematics did not allow it. But there it was. Krios stopped laughing. He stared at the human vessel on his screen, his mouth hanging open. How did they— Sir, the human ship is broadcasting on all frequencies. His communications officer interrupted. Day One's voice filled every Council ship in the Armada. This is Captain Day One of the Earth Defense Vessel, Eternal Dawn. You have entered neutral space with an invasion fleet. You threaten human colonies with violence. I am offering you one chance. One opportunity. Turn your ships around and leave. Do this, and no blood will be spilled today. Silence hung in space. 10,000 ships. One human voice. Counselor Velmara watched from her command ship, her claws digging into the armrest. This is an insult. Krios, destroy that ship immediately. Krios felt his pride burning. A human. A single human dared to give him orders. All nearby vessels, target the human ship. Flagship and escort carriers will engage. Vaporize them. 13 of the Council's most powerful warships turned their weapons toward the Eternal Dawn. Enough firepower to crack a moon. Enough to turn any ship into scattered atoms. They are powering weapons, Jinwoo called out. Multiple target locks. Shields up, Day One ordered calmly. Sung-ho, prepare countermeasures. Captain, they are firing. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles screamed toward the Eternal Dawn. The Council officers watched their displays, already preparing victory messages. The human ship would simply cease to exist. Then, something impossible happened. The Eternal Dawn's shields activated, but they were not like anything the Council had seen before. Instead of simply blocking the incoming fire, the shields absorbed the energy. Every beam, every explosion was captured and redirected. The alien weapons simply vanished into the shield matrix. Zero damage. Complete nullification. The firing stopped. Every Council commander stared at their screens in disbelief. That should not be possible. Energy had to go somewhere. It could not just disappear. Analysis, Krios shouted. Their shields are using a multi-phase absorption system, his science officer stammered. They are not blocking the weapons. They are eating them, storing the energy. Sir, this technology should not exist. Day One leaned forward in his chair. Their turn is over. Sung-ho, show them what the Eternal Dawn can do. Target the flagship's weapons array. Fire. The human battleship's main railgun fired. The projectile moved at a significant fraction of light speed, crossing the distance in less than a second. It punched through the flagship's shields like they were paper. The dominant will shook violently as its entire forward weapons section exploded. Krios fell from his command chair. Emergency lights flickered across his bridge. Damage reports flooded in. 30% of his weapons were gone. From one shot. One impossible shot. Return fire, he screamed. All ships, engage that vessel. But fear was spreading through the Council fleet. They had never faced an enemy like this. An enemy that appeared where they should not be. That absorbed their weapons and struck back with terrifying precision. Captain, Heejin said quietly. All systems are performing perfectly. The shields are at 98% capacity, even after absorbing their full barrage. We have enough stored energy to fire the main cannon 4 more times without using our own power. Day One nodded. Tactical Officer Young Mi. Calculate firing solutions on the nearest carrier groups. Sung-ho. Prepare missile pods. Let us see how they handle our smart munitions. Young Mi's fingers flew across her console. Solutions locked, Captain. Transferring to weapons now. The Eternal Dawn moved, and the Council fleet discovered another horror. The human ship could maneuver like a fighter despite its size. It turned and accelerated in ways that should have torn it apart. Human engineering had thrown away the limitations that bound Council vessels. "Dr. Bora," Daewon asked, "how are the engines handling the stress?" The scientist smiled from her station. "The engines are operating at 115% now, Captain. The more we push them, the more efficient they become. I am still not entirely sure why, but I am not complaining." Missiles launched from the eternal dawn. But these were not simple explosives. Each missile had its own artificial intelligence. Each one could think, adapt, and hunt. The Council point defense systems tried to intercept them, but the missiles dodged and weaved, learning from each defensive pattern. Explosions rippled through the Council formation as the missiles found their targets. Carrier shields collapsed. Hull plating melted. Ships that had seemed invincible moments ago now burned and died. In 20 minutes, the Eternal Dawn had destroyed or disabled over 300 Council vessels. Not a single shot had penetrated its shields. The Council's numerical advantage meant nothing against technology they could not match, and tactics they could not predict. Daewon stood and walked to the view screen. Outside, the once proud Armada was in chaos. Ships were breaking formation. Some were fleeing. Others fired wildly at anything that moved. "Open a channel," he ordered. "All frequencies." When the light turned green, he spoke. "This is Captain Daewon. I gave you a chance for peace. You chose violence. Now you see the result. Humanity will not kneel. We will not surrender. And we will never stop fighting for our freedom." He turned to his crew. "Continue the engagement. Disable their command ships. Show them this is not a fluke. Show them what happens when they make humans angry." The Eternal Dawn dove back into the chaos. A single ship against thousands. But now, it was the thousands who were afraid. The Council Armada was falling apart. Ships that had maintained perfect formation now scattered like frightened birds. Commander Krios gripped his command chair as another explosion rocked the dominant will. His flagship, the pride of the Council fleet, was dying around him. "All vessels, converge on the human ship," he screamed into the communication system. "Concentrate all fire. Overwhelm their shields." Thousands of ships turned toward the Eternal Dawn. Energy weapons lit up the darkness. Missiles filled space like a deadly swarm. Surely nothing could survive this. No shields could hold against the combined might of an entire armada. On the Eternal Dawn's bridge, alarms blared. The view screen showed incoming fire from every direction. Enough destructive power to level a continent. All of it focused on one ship. "Impact in 5 seconds, Jin-Woo reported, his voice tight with tension. Sung-Ho's hands moved across the weapons console. "Point. Defense systems active. Smart countermeasures deploying." Heijin watched her engineering displays with calm focus. "Shields holding at maximum. Power distribution is optimal. The ship can handle this, Captain." Daewon sat motionless in his chair, watching the storm approach. "Ari, activate combat protocols. Begin evasive pattern." Delta 7. The ship's artificial intelligence responded immediately. Her voice was warm and almost human. "Acknowledged, Captain. Executing maneuvers. Now." The Eternal Dawn moved. It did not lumber or turn slowly, like other capital ships. It danced. The vessel twisted and spun through space like a fighter craft, its engines defying physics as the Council understood them. Missiles that should have hit passed through empty space. Energy beams struck nothing but darkness. The few weapons that did connect met the shields and simply vanished, their energy absorbed and stored. The Eternal Dawn was not just surviving the barrage. It was feeding on it. "Shields at 112% capacity," Heijin announced. "We have stored enough energy to power the ship for 6 hours, or to fire the main cannon 23 times. Daewon allowed himself a small smile. Then, Let us put that energy to good use. Sung-ho, release the full missile complement. Target their carrier groups. Young-mi, I want firing solutions on every command ship within range. The Eternal Dawn's missile bays opened. Hundreds of smart missiles launched into space, each one a tiny artificial intelligence with a single purpose. Destroy the enemy, but destroy them efficiently. Learn, adapt, win. The missiles spread out across the battlefield. Council point defense systems tried to intercept them, but the missiles learned from every attempt. They shared information with each other, creating a network of intelligence that grew smarter with every second. When one missile discovered a weakness in a shield system, all the others knew instantly. Carrier after carrier erupted in flames. Their shields could not adapt fast enough. Their defenses could not learn. The Council had built their weapons to follow simple programs. Humanity had given their weapons the ability to think. Main cannon charged, Sung-ho reported. Target locked on the command ship. Eternal Fury. Fire, Day One ordered. The particle beam punched through space at near light speed. It hit the Eternal Fury's shields and simply ignored them. The beam continued through the ship's armor, through 3 internal decks, and out the other side. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the command ship broke in half, both sections tumbling away in different directions. But the beam had not stopped. It continued through 2 more capital ships behind the first target, crippling both of them in a single shot. 3 ships, 1 trigger pull. On Counselor Velmara's command ship, panic had replaced arrogance. She watched the battle unfold with growing horror. This was supposed to be an easy victory. A simple show of force. How had it gone so wrong? Get me Commander Krios, she hissed at her communications officer. He is not responding, Counselor. The dominant will has suffered catastrophic damage. Velmara's claws scraped against her chair. Then order the fleet to withdraw. Fall back to the secondary positions. But the order came too late. The Eternal Dawn had already identified the command ship patterns. Ari had calculated which vessels were giving orders and which were following. The smart missiles shifted their targets, focusing on the ships that held the fleet together. Captain, Young-mi called from Tactical. I am detecting massive energy signatures. They are preparing to jump away. Can we stop them? Day One asked. Dr. Bora looked up from her science station. I can disrupt their jump drives with a focused graviton pulse. It will trap them here for approximately 15 minutes. Do it, Day One ordered. They started this fight. They do not get to run until we are finished teaching them. The Eternal Dawn released the pulse. Across the battlefield, Council ships trying to escape found their faster-than-light drives suddenly offline. They were trapped, stuck in normal space with a predator that would not stop hunting. Krios pulled himself up from the deck of his ruined bridge. Half his crew was dead. Systems were failing throughout the ship. His pride, his arrogance, his absolute certainty in Council superiority had led to this disaster. Evacuate the ship, he said quietly. All hands to the escape pods. His surviving officers looked at him in shock. Krios had never retreated from anything in his long career. But this was not retreat. This was survival. Go, he shouted. That human ship will kill us all if we stay. As escape pods began launching from the dominant will, Day One received a priority transmission from Earth. Admiral Taeyang's face appeared on his screen. Captain, we are receiving the tactical data you are broadcasting. The entire galaxy is watching this battle. Every species, every civilization. They are seeing that the Council can be beaten. Good, Day One replied. Let them see. Let them know that bullies can bleed. What are your orders, Captain? Taeyang asked. Day One looked at the chaos on his view screen. Burning ships. Escape pods filling space. An armada that came to conquer now struggling just to survive. He could destroy them all. Every last ship. But that would make humanity no better than the Council. We continue disabling their command vessels, he said. But we allow evacuations. We are not murderers. We are defenders. There is a difference. Sung-ho turned from his console. Captain, that goes against every tactical advantage. If we let them evacuate, they can regroup. They can come back. Yes, Daewon agreed. And when they do, we will beat them again. We will show the galaxy that humans fight when we must, but we do not slaughter those who surrender. Heijin nodded approvingly. The crew agrees with you, Captain. We came to defend, not to become monsters. The Eternal Dawn continued its devastating assault, but now it targeted weapons and engines. When escape pods launched, the ship avoided them. When vessels tried to surrender, Daewon accepted and marked them as non-combatants. Within an hour, the battlefield had transformed. Of the nearly 10,000 ships that came to invade, less than 6,000 remained combat-capable. The rest were disabled, destroyed, or had surrendered. And still the Eternal Dawn had not taken any real damage. Krios sat in an escape pod, watching through the small window as the human battleship systematically dismantled his fleet. He had studied humans before this battle. He had read their history. Wars, conflicts, violence throughout their development. He thought that made them predictable, simple. He was wrong. Humans were not simple. They were terrifyingly complex. They could be brutal when needed, but showed mercy when possible. They broke every rule but followed their own code absolutely. They refused to lose, but refused to become what they fought against. For the first time in his life, Krios felt something he thought he would never experience: respect for an enemy. The Eternal Dawn sent one final broadcast to the shattered armada. Daewon's voice was calm and clear. This battle is over. Your invasion has failed. Take your wounded and go home. Tell the Council what happened here. Tell them humanity will not kneel. And tell them if they come again, we will be ready. The ship turned and began moving away from the battlefield, its weapons still hot, its shields still glowing with stored energy. Behind it, the largest military force ever assembled, limped away in defeat. One ship had changed everything. The Council fleet ran. Ships that had maintained perfect military discipline now scattered in every direction. Fear had replaced pride. Survival trumped honor. The great armada that came to conquer humanity was now a broken mob desperate to escape. On the Eternal Dawn, Captain Daewon watched the chaos unfold. His crew was tired, but focused. The ship hummed with barely contained power, ready to continue the fight. The question was whether they should. Captain, Sung-ho called from weapons. We could pursue. Pick off their command ships one by one. They cannot fight back anymore. It was true. The Council forces were defenseless. Their formations had collapsed. Their commanders were dead or fleeing. The Eternal Dawn could hunt them across the sector and destroy every last vessel. Military tactics demanded it. Press the advantage. Eliminate the threat completely. But Daewon was not thinking like a military tactician in that moment. He was thinking like a human being. Captain, Dr. Bo-Ra spoke up from her science station. I am detecting something interesting. The Council ships are broadcasting distress signals. Some are requesting coordinates for medical stations. Others are looking for rescue ships for their escape pods. Heijin left her engineering console and approached the captain's chair. They came to hurt us. They threatened our colonies, our families. And now they are asking for help? Yes, Daewon said quietly. They are. Which means we have a choice to make. The bridge fell silent. Every crew member understood what he meant. They could be destroyers, or defenders, conquerors, or protectors. The choice would define not just this battle, but how the galaxy saw humanity forever. Lieutenant Sung-ho clenched his fists. Captain, with respect, they would not show us mercy. If we had lost, they would have enslaved our colonies. They would have killed anyone who resisted. You are probably right, Daewon agreed. But we did not lose. We won. And that means we get to choose what happens next. We can become what they feared, or we can show them what humanity really is. Youngmi looked up from tactical. What are your orders, Captain? Day One stood and walked to the view screen. He could see disabled council ships drifting in the distance, escape pods floating among the debris. Beings who had come to hurt humanity, now helpless and vulnerable. Open a channel, he ordered. Broadcast to all council vessels and escape pods. The communication light turned green. Day One took a breath and spoke. This is Captain Day One of the Eternal Dawn. Your invasion has failed. Your fleet is broken. But humanity does not slaughter the defenseless. I am transmitting coordinates for safe zones. Medical ships from neutral territories are being contacted. Your wounded will receive care. Your escape pods will be recovered. He paused, letting his words sink in across hundreds of ships. But understand this, he continued. We are offering mercy, not weakness. If you threaten human space again, there will be no negotiations, no warnings. We will defend our people with everything we have. Go home. Tell your leaders what happened here. Tell them, humanity cannot be conquered. The channel closed. Across the battlefield, Council survivors heard the message with disbelief. The humans were helping them? After everything? It made no sense, according to Council logic. The strong dominated the weak. Winners destroyed losers. That was the natural order. But humans followed different rules. On Earth, Admiral Tae-young sat in Lunar Command watching the battle data stream in. Counselor Il-sung stood beside him, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. The human counselor had been arguing for peaceful coexistence for years. Now his arguments had teeth. Admiral, Il-sung said carefully, Captain Day One's mercy is changing things. I am receiving communications from 3 minor council species. They want to meet, privately. They are questioning why they follow leaders who abandon their own fleet. Tae-yang nodded slowly. Political fractures. The council's authority was built on the belief they were invincible. Day One just shattered that belief. More than that, Il-sung continued. He showed that humanity has principles. We could have massacred them. But we chose differently. Some species are paying attention to that. High Arbiter Thelvas, Supreme Leader of the Galactic Council, watched the battle reports with shaking hands. 10,000 ships, the largest fleet ever assembled, defeated by a single human vessel. It was impossible. It had to be impossible. But the reports kept coming. The casualties, the disabled ships, the humiliation. Counselor Velmara burst into his chambers without waiting for permission. We must assemble another fleet. Immediately. We cannot let this stand. Thelvas looked at her with tired eyes. And it was not enough. Then we conscript more. We demand every member species contribute. Demand. Thelvas interrupted. 3 species have already declared neutrality. They are refusing our authority. Your failed invasion did not strengthen the council. It broke it. Velmara's claws dug into the desk. Then what do you propose? We let the humans mock us? Let them. Enough, Thelvas roared. You wanted this war. You pushed for this invasion. And now look at the result. I am calling an emergency session. The council will vote on a new approach. Meanwhile, the Eternal Dawn received new orders from Earth. Admiral Tae-young's face appeared on the view screen. Behind him, Day One could see movement. Ships. Lots of them. Captain, the Rising Phoenix and the rest of our fleet are moving to your position. Captain Mi-sun sends her regards and says she is disappointed you finished the battle before she arrived. Day One smiled slightly. Mi-sun commanded Earth's 2nd battleship, sister ship to the Eternal Dawn. She was aggressive and competitive. She would absolutely be angry about missing the fight. Tell her I saved some targets for the journey home, Day One replied. Actually, Tae-young said, you will not be fighting your way home. The fleet is coming to escort you. We are making a statement. Earth's full military strength, returning from a battle that changed everything. Understood, sir. And Captain? Taeyang's expression grew serious. You gave them mercy. That was the right choice. But stay alert. The council is fractured. But wounded animals are dangerous. The connection ended. Daewon returned to his chair and looked at his crew. They were exhausted, but proud. They had done the impossible and survived. All hands, this is the captain. He broadcast throughout the ship. We won today. Not just a battle, but something more important. We proved that humanity deserves respect, that we can defend ourselves, and that we can show mercy even to enemies who would not show us the same. Minasa. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. But this is not over. The council will not forget this defeat. They will regroup. They will plan. And we must be ready. So rest while you can. Repair what needs fixing. And prepare for whatever comes next. Because humanity does not back down. We never have. We never will. The crew responded with quiet determination. No cheers. No celebrations. Just the steady resolve of people who knew the fight was far from finished. 3 days later, the Eternal Dawn met up with Earth's fleet. Captain Mi-sun's face appeared on the communication screen, her expression mixing frustration and admiration. You could have waited for backup, she said. And miss all the fun? Daewon replied. Fun? You faced 10,000 ships alone. 9,800, he corrected. And I was never alone. I had the best crew in the fleet. Mi-sun shook her head but smiled. Next time, save some for the rest of us. The rising phoenix needs a chance to prove herself too. The combined human fleet turned toward Earth, a formation of strength and unity. Behind them, the council licked its wounds and wondered how everything had gone so wrong. Ahead, a galaxy watched and waited to see what humanity would do next. In an escape pod drifting among the debris, former Commander Krios recorded a message. It would take weeks to reach anyone, but he needed to say it. This is Commander Krios. I led the invasion of human space. I believed we were superior. I believed they were primitives. I was wrong about everything. He paused, looking at the stars through the small window. The humans are not simple. They are not predictable. They are dangerous because they refuse to quit, and they are terrifying because they know when to stop. Any species can destroy, but it takes something special to show mercy to an enemy who offered none. He ended the recording and closed his eyes. Somewhere in the distance, the human fleet was heading home, and Krios knew, with absolute certainty, that the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the battle that changed the galaxy. The Eternal Dawn sat in orbital dry dock above Earth, its hull being repaired and upgraded, not because it had been damaged in the fight, but because He-Jin kept finding ways to make it better. She could not help herself. There was always another improvement to make, another system to enhance. Captain Daewon, now Admiral Daewon, stood in his new office at Lunar Command. The promotion had been unexpected. He preferred being on a ship, but Admiral Taeyang had insisted. Someone needed to oversee humanity's growing fleet, and that someone needed to understand what the Eternal Dawn represented. Admiral, a voice called from the doorway. Counselor Il-seong stepped into the office, carrying a datapad. The latest reports from the Galactic Assembly. You should read them. Daewon took the pad and scanned through the information. The Galactic Council had collapsed 3 months ago. High Arbiter Thelvas resigned after losing the confidence vote. Counselor Velmara had been removed from all positions of authority, accused of leading the Council into disaster. In their place, a new Galactic Assembly had formed. Unlike the Council, which ruled through military might, the Assembly was built on cooperation and mutual respect. Every member species had an equal vote. Decisions required consensus, not force. And Earth held a permanent seat at the table. Strange how things change, Day One said quietly. 6 months ago, they wanted to enslave us. Now they want us as partners. Il-seong nodded. Fear creates respect, faster than diplomacy. But it is our mercy that created trust. The species that watched us spare our enemies now believe we can be relied upon. Have the treaty negotiations progressed? Yes. We are sharing some technology, but keeping our military innovations classified. They understand. Actually, several species are asking if we would help design their defense systems. They do not trust the old council weapons anymore. Daewon walked to the window and looked at Earth below. Blue and green and beautiful. Worth fighting for. Worth defending. But also worth sharing with those who approached in friendship. What about the former council forces? He asked. Scattered. Most returned to their home worlds. Some species left the remnants of the council entirely. 3 have requested defense pacts with Earth. They fear other predatory species might attack now that the council's protection is gone. And what did we tell them? That we will defend our friends, but we will not build an empire. Across the solar system, in the shipyards of Jupiter's moons, humanity was building. Not just warships, but science vessels. Exploration craft. Medical ships. The eternal dawn had proven humanity could fight. Now they needed to prove they could do more than just survive. Chief Engineer Hee Jin walked through the construction bays, her datapad filled with schematics. The Rising Phoenix was being upgraded with the latest systems. 3 more ships of the same class were being built. Not an invasion fleet, but a defense force, strong enough to make anyone think twice about threatening Earth. Chief Engineer, a young technician called out. The new shield generators are ready for testing. Hee-jin smiled. These shields were different from the ones on the Eternal Dawn. Instead of just absorbing energy, they could share power between allied ships. A fleet working together would be stronger than any single vessel. Cooperation over dominance. Very human. Dr. Bora stood in a conference room surrounded by scientists from a dozen different species. They were working together on a new, faster-than-light drive, one that would be more efficient, safer, and available to all assembly members. An alien scientist, a crystalline being named Reshtari, worked alongside her. Your approach to physics is unusual, Dr. Bora. You ask questions we never considered. That is because we are new to all this. Bora replied. We do not have centuries of assumptions holding us back. We just ask, why not? And see what happens. Dangerous approach, Reshtari said. Yes, but effective. On a colony world in the neutral zone, something remarkable was happening. Human children played in a park alongside alien children. Different species, different languages, different biologies, but children were children everywhere. They laughed and ran, and made friends without caring about politics or history. A human mother watched her daughter play with a young alien who looked like a floating jellyfish. 6 months ago, she would have been terrified. Now she just smiled and made small talk with the alien's parent about the universal challenges of raising youngsters. This was the real victory. Not the battle, not the broken armada, but this. Different species, learning to coexist. Back at Lunar Command, Admiral Tae-young sat in his retirement quarters writing his memoirs. He had served Earth for 50 years. He had seen first contact. He had fought in skirmishes. He had watched humanity struggle to find its place in a galaxy that did not want them. And he had seen everything change because one ship refused to back down. His memoirs would be called The War That Never Was. Because that battle should have started a war. Instead, it ended one before it could truly begin. A message appeared on his communication console. It was from Krios, the former council commander. The alien had been working with assembly peacekeepers, helping to track down pirates and slavers who were taking advantage of the council's collapse. The message was simple. Thank you for teaching an old warrior that strength without wisdom is just violence. I am trying to be better. I am... Tae-yang smiled and wrote a brief reply. We all are. Tree. Captain Misun stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, her new command. Day One had personally requested she take over the legendary ship. She ran her hand along the captain's chair, feeling the history in every surface. Captain, Lieutenant Sung Ho called from weapons. He had transferred with Misun from the Rising Phoenix. All systems are operational. The ship is ready to launch. Where are we headed? She asked. Patrol Route Delta. The outer colonies. Some reports of pirate activity. Misun smiled. Pirates. After facing 10,000 council ships, pirates seemed almost relaxing, but she would not underestimate anyone. The Eternal Dawn had taught the galaxy that underestimating your opponent was a fatal mistake. Take us out, she ordered. Let us remind the galaxy that Earth protects its own. The Eternal Dawn undocked and moved into space, its engines blazing. No longer a secret weapon, but a symbol, a promise, a reminder that humanity would never kneel. In the new galactic assembly chambers, Councillor Il Seong stood before representatives from hundreds of species. He had been elected as the first High Chancellor of the Assembly, a human leading a galactic government. The irony was not lost on anyone. We gather not as conquerors and conquered, he said, his voice carrying through the chamber, but as equals. The old council ruled through fear. We will lead through cooperation. They demanded obedience. We request partnership. An alien delegate raised a tentacle. And if some species refuse? If they threaten assembly members? Il Seong's expression hardened slightly. Then, they will learn what humanity taught the council. We are peaceful. We prefer diplomacy. But we are not weak, and we protect our friends. The chamber erupted in approval. Not the fearful obedience the council demanded, but genuine agreement. Species that had been oppressed for generations were finally free to speak. And they chose cooperation. Back on Earth, in a small apartment in Seoul, a mother held her son and watched the news broadcasts. Ships launching, diplomats meeting, scientists collaborating. The galaxy was changing, and her son would grow up in a universe where humanity was not just accepted, but respected. She thought about the men and women who made this possible. The crew of the Eternal Dawn, who faced impossible odds. The engineers who built weapons they hoped would never be used. The diplomats who turned victory into peace. Heroes. All of them. But they would never call themselves that. They were just humans, doing what humans do. Refusing to quit. Refusing to surrender. And refusing to become monsters even when it would be easier. Admiral Day One stood at his window and watched a new ship launch from the orbital construction yards. The fifth battleship. Earth's fleet was growing. Not to conquer, not to threaten, but to ensure that no one would ever again think humanity was an easy target. A message arrived on his console. It was from Captain Mi-sun on the Eternal Dawn. Admiral, patrol route is clear. The colonies are safe. The ship performed perfectly. Heijin's upgrades are incredible. We encountered a small pirate group. They ran away the moment they identified us. Apparently, our reputation precedes us. Day One chuckled and sent a reply. Good. Let them run. Let everyone know that humanity defends its people. But also let them know we are open to friendship. Fear is a tool, not a goal. He looked back at Earth. 50 years ago, humanity had been alone. Primitive by galactic standards. Weak. Vulnerable. Now, they were leaders. Innovators. Defenders of the weak and friends to the peaceful. The Eternal Dawn had started this transformation. One ship against an armada. One crew refusing to accept defeat. One captain choosing mercy over massacre. But the real strength was not in the ship or the weapons or the shields. The real strength was in what they represented. Human determination. Human ingenuity. Human compassion. The galaxy had tested humanity and found them unbreakable. Now it was learning that humans could be the best allies anyone could ask for. Strong enough to defend you. Wise enough to know when to fight and when to talk. and stubborn enough to never abandon those they called friends. Day 1 turned from the window and looked at the reports on his desk. Exploration missions, scientific collaborations, defense pacts, trade agreements. The work of building a peaceful galaxy was harder than winning a battle, but it was more important, and humanity, as always, would do whatever it took to protect what mattered. The Eternal Dawn flew through space. No longer alone, it was joined by other human ships, allied vessels from friendly species, a fleet built on cooperation rather than conquest. And somewhere in the darkness, species that might have considered threatening Earth thought twice. They remembered what happened to the Council Armada. They remembered that humanity could not be conquered, but more importantly, they remembered that humanity had shown mercy to defeated enemies, that they had chosen peace when they could have chosen destruction. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not to be trifled with, but they were also not to be feared by the innocent. They were defenders, protectors, friends, and that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy to threaten, but also the best possible allies to have. The new dawn had arrived. Not just for humanity, but for every species willing to embrace cooperation over domination. The Council was gone. The Assembly stood in its place, and at the heart of it all, one simple truth remained. Never underestimate humanity. They will surprise you every single time.